Hello, people of YouTube land, those that follow Ted and I on Twitch, those that are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Community Discord, those that are listening to this on Spotify or whatever audio streaming service that this gets put on. I am Traductus.
No, your new name is Private Gomer Pyle. I am Ted.
Obviously, his new name is Private Joker.
I really wanted to be Snowball, dude, so I could yell really awkwardly.
Alright, fine, you're Snowball.
Do you like your new name, Private Snowball? Sorry, yes, sir!
But anyway, this is, God. This is the Cringe Crew community, Cringe Crew Gaming Movie Podcast. Movie review podcast, and it's scuffed already. And obviously, we have been doing Stanley Kubrick films. We take a director's filmography, we go through them all, and obviously we're on Full Metal Jacket. If the helmet wasn't, a dead giveaway, even though I didn't wear this for Paths of Glory or Fear and Desire or any other war movie that Kubrick has directed.
Truly, it gives it gives a much more Full Metal Jacket vibe than it would have for other movies. So I respect your choice to put it here. I really do.
Right. So yeah, we are on Full Metal Jacket. So we'll get into the background of this. Also, Ted's gonna have some input on this because Ted actually knows quite a bit about the background of this movie of how it got made a little bit.
I do. I know some weird ass movie trivia here.
Which, yay! Ted can actually join me on this.
Participation!
Full Metal Jacket, made in 1987. Obviously directed by Stanley Kubrick. By the way, this is also an adaptation from a book from the Gustav Hasford novel
I'm about to
from
Gomer Pyle
1979, The Short
myself.
Timers.
About the Gomer Pyle myself if I hear it's a book.
And
one
also,
more time.
Gustav Hasford was involved with the screenplay, so that's really cool. Let's see, released in June 17th, 1987 in Beverly Hills. For the rest of the United States, was June 26th, 1987. Released in the United Kingdom, September 11th, 1987. And had a budget of $16.5 million to $30 million with a box office return of $120 million.
I did ask out loud yesterday how much of that budget went to ammunition, and we were not able to find an answer because my guess is that it's close to half. They fire so many worthless bullets.
Which is why I made the joke. That's why there's a ranged budget, because people couldn't figure that out either. I guess we'll go into cast.
If you don't start with Arlie Army right now.
What?
I said, if you don't start with
I
the main character.
I am starting with the main character.
Yeah,
okay,
Arlie Army.
Fine. Yeah. All right. Arlie Army is Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, the drill sergeant, who might as well be the main character, but Arlie Army was a actual member of the Marine Corps, and he was a staff sergeant, and he was also an honorary gunnery sergeant. He's best known for this role, obviously. He's also plays Sarge in the first 3 Toy Story movies, Sheriff Hoyt in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. He plays Mayor Tillman in Mississippi Burning. I mean, Arlie Army's been in a lot of stuff, especially also the History Channel series Mail Call, which he hosted. Arlie Army is a frickin' legend.
And most of
And
the
has
roles
been
that you
in a
would
lot of stuff.
most of the roles that you would recognize him from are very military focused. A whole lot of, drill sergeant call outs. I mean, even the fact that they casted him as Sarge in Toy Story was overkill for that role. Like his voice just fits there.
Yeah, absolutely. And fuck, he was also a sergeant in the Frighteners. What the hell?
Military.
So yeah,
role.
obviously he gets typecasted a lot. Yep.
Fun.
Oh my god,
fun.
Invader Zim, Sergeant Hobo 678.
Oh my god, I forgot about Invader Zim, dude. No, my favorite note about him in this role. Several times they had to stop filming during the production of this movie because he was getting too into character. He would call off the shot specifically to make sure that he wasn't too into cast and he could be like intentional without being like purposefully unkind or personal towards the cast.
Which with the when it comes to the drill sergeant sections, there's a lot of stuff that was improvised in there. When we get into Vincent D'Onofrio as Private Gomer Leonard Lawrence, also as Private Gomer Pyle. Vincent D'Onofrio, oddly enough, was the breakout star in this, other than Arlie Ermey. Although when I get into this, there's a couple other people that have actually done, other things, just not as prominent as Arlie Ermey and Vincent D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio was more so as like a Broadway stage actor at the time. Like he was in a couple movies beforehand. He was actually urged by a friend of his to send in audition tapes to Stanley Kubrick in England, and 4 tapes later, D'Onofrio landed the role. Originally, he was supposed to be a skinny, ignorant redneck, but Kubrick believed the role would have more impact if he was fat and clumsy. So Vincent D'Onofrio had to gain 70 pounds for the role, and bringing his weight to 280, which still remains the world record for most gained for an act. Most weight gained from an actor for a movie, specifically for the movie. And also while filming the obstacle course scenes for the movie, D'Onofrio injured his left knee, compounded with the excess weight that he gained. It required surgical reconstruction. Oddly enough, what's funny is that also released the same year, and I wonder if this was made afterwards or before. I know it was released afterwards. He plays the role of the mechanic Dawson in Adventures in Babysitting, and he's jacked in that movie because he's basically supposed to look like Thor. And seeing him as Gomer Pyle in this, I wonder how many audiences would just go, "How?" It's like,
oh, it's a violent difference. It's like, if you've seen him in other things, you probably don't know that you've seen him in other things. He's hefty in this movie. Like, it's not even like natural. Let yourself. It's not even like let yourself go weight though. Like it is. I intentionally got fatter than is possible. Like he's hefty in this movie.
Yeah, and he's, for those that don't know, that he's Edgar in Men in Black. He's also the Kingpin in the Marvel Cinematic Universe TV series Daredevil. He's in a whole bunch of other things. Like, he's definitely an actor. If you don't know his name, you definitely know him if you've seen him.
Well,
that being said,
you only know him as one role, even if you've seen him in several. he has pretty good range, admittedly. Like, now that we can look back on a majority of his career, right? That like his roles are pretty different. It's hard to identify him between 2 roles, but for the most part, he does a pretty good job.
Gary Oldman before Gary Oldman, almost. I mean, like, Gary Oldman was around at the same time, but I'm saying, like, definitely like one of those actors that's like, wait, no, that can't be him.
Kinda, yeah. Except Oldman's been in more shit.
Right.
Way more shit.
Now we have Matthew Modine as Private / Sergeant JT Joker Davis. He is the actual main character in this.
No.
He's also known for in other films that he was in as Dr. Ralph Wyman in Shortcuts, Peter Foley in The Dark Knight, Drake Goodman in Pacific Heights.
God fucking damn it. I wish just one time we could watch movies without stringing them all together, and there's always a fucking tie into the last thing we fucking watched. I'm so mad right now.
Sorry, I wasn't trying.
I know. It's not your fault, but Jesus fuck. Like, let us have some creativity.
Joe Slovak in Gross Anatomy. I thought I'd say Grey's Anatomy for a second. But he also plays Dr. Martin Brenner in the Netflix series Stranger Things.
Holy shit, so no way. Yeah. Fuck, dude. I didn't even put that together, but I'm so fucking mad right now. Fuck!
So he's been in other things. We have Adam Baldwin as Sergeant Animal Mother, who that role was originally considered for Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he turned the role down in favor of doing the Running Man instead. And part of me was like, wow, Schwarzenegger would have been really good for the role. And what people are like, what do you mean? Like, wouldn't that be distracting? It's like, yes, it would be distracting. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but
no, it's not distracting at all. That entire role was, I'm angry, I'm loud, I belong in war, fire this very large gun. Like, no, that's what Arnold Schwarzenegger's entire career has been. No, it's not distracting.
With the exception of Maggie, which actually showed that he actually had depth as an actor.
Fuck off. No, nobody wants to see Arnold Schwarzenegger hold big gun, yell loudly, murder communists. Like, that's his whole career.
Well, instead we got Adam Baldwin, who's also best known as Jane Cobb in the TV series Firefly and the continuation film Serenity. He also plays Colonel John Casey in Chuck and Mike Slattery in The Last Ship. Although I think most people would probably know him from, this movie and also Firefly and Serenity. He was also in Independence Day. Jesus Christ. Then probably odd. Who else should we put? Oh, there. Arliss Howard as Private/Sergeant Cowboy Evans. He's known for this role. He was also in Lost World, Jurassic Park, The Time Traveler's Wife, and also Moneyball.
Yep.
What role did he play in Moneyball? Oh yeah, John Henry. Okay.
Yep.
And Moneyball. So I guess there's other. I guess people have been in other stuff. See Kevin Major Howard as Private First Class Rafterman. Yeah, nothing really else except for as an extra in Scarface.
There's a lot of people in this movie that like become notable that you see them, but like I guess their careers aren't notable or they don't play significant parts.
Right.
Like Private Snowball, right? You recognize him, but like it's not because he plays a significant part. I think he's got 5 lines and half of them are "Sir, yes, sir," screaming it so awkwardly you think he's going to shit himself.
And Private Snowball is played by Peter Edmond, and there's nothing to click on for his Wikipedia, so
exactly.
Therefore, he hasn't really gone anywhere. He's just known as Snowball. Dorian Harewood is Corporal 8-Ball. He is best known as playing Jesse Owens in the Jesse Owens story. Also, Paul Stauber on Strike Force, and Reverend Morgan Hamilton in Seventh Heaven. And I think that's
that you've gone beyond what's notable, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's
like I said, faces.
That's basically all that matters.
Names and faces you recognize throughout the movie, but honestly, like the code names and stuff help. It helps the identifiability that like they make a big point of their names. Realistically, the ones that you need to hold on to are the drill sergeant, Pyle, Joker and
Cowboy.
Cowboy. Cowboy was the one I couldn't come up with, and so I skipped over Joker to try and figure out. Fuck it, my brain goes burr.
I mean, Animal Mother has some significance in it, but like
you barely fucking need to know his name. Again, he's a Rambo clone that isn't played by fucking Rambo, and you get disappointed. Okay, like,
and 8-Ball just gets shot. That's really about it. And Rafterman just saves.
Rafterman creates dialogue for
Joker's
Joker.
life.
Rafterman creates dialogue for Joker, and that's it. Anyway.
Take this off. This is hurting my fucking head. Ow.
I'm still calling you Gomer Pyle. I don't care. Anyway, I'll get into plot. So this movie. Okay. If you watch this movie for entertainment purposes, this movie is 40 minutes long. Drill Sergeant Hardman yells at everybody, makes the most creative insults you've ever heard in your entire life. And Gomer Pyle then paints the end on the walls behind him out of his brain. The beginning part of this movie is about like the spoils of war and the dedication to becoming a soldier and the toxicity of what it's like to be a soldier, as well as, you know, like, again, pointing out that Kubrick needs a therapist because he doesn't agree with the fact that he's racist, and then immediately drops N-words in casual conversation. The last 2 hours of this movie then becomes much less comedic, much more serious about like bigger, large topics, right? Specifically as an anti-Vietnam protest, or I don't want to say protest because the war was over by the time this movie came out. So,
right.
But an anti-war piece. And then again about like the toxicity of war, toxic masculinity, the war regime that is being a soldier, as well as the definitely like anti-capitalism piece against the military-industrial complex. Basically, fuck everything America is because it's bad for you. That's what Kubrick did with this movie.
Before Ted kind of interrupted me a little bit.
Sorry.
It's all right. This is scuffed from the beginning, so it doesn't matter what order we're doing this shit in.
Pretty fucking true.
If not, this is like a Nolan cut of our review. We're just
fair.
All right. But anyway, Kubrick wanted to do a Vietnam War movie, and ended up discovering the novel The Short Timers while reading the review of the book that was in Kirkus Reviews magazine. And while researching for the movie, he watched archival footage, documentaries, and read Vietnamese newspapers on microfilm from the U.S. Library of Congress, and ended up being drawn to that book due to the dialogue in the book, and felt that it had an almost poetic and carved out stark quality, apparently. So basically, again, you know, Kubrick wanting to make a war film, finds a book that he likes, and then adapts it into a movie. I guess other people that were supposed to be in for Joker, now that I see, why didn't they add that to the beginning part for casting? They did it with fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. Why the hell didn't they do it on here? But apparently, Anthony Michael Hall, for those who don't know, Anthony Michael Hall is, shit.
Your parents have any children that survived? But they regret that, don't they?
Oh, Anthony Michael Hall is like the nerdy kid in 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and he's also in Weird Science. They were thought of him being Private Joker. Obviously, he didn't get the role. Val Kilmer was also considered for the role, and Bruce Willis also turned down the role due to filming commitments to his television series Moonlighting.
Yeah, nope. Bad casting. Private Joker
And
could not have been a
apparently-
buff fucking action star.
And
Absolutely.
Arlie
goddamn
Ermey was almost the role was almost given. His role was almost given to Ed Harris.
Also abysmally bad, but less bad.
Yeah. Also, Denzel Washington wanted to be in the movie, but Kubrick didn't send him a script. I didn't realize that Denzel Washington acted.
That's because
that
racism,
far
I'm
back.
sure. 100% sure that's because racism.
Oh wow, Glorious 1989. Holy shit, I didn't realize that that's how old that was. Modine described the person that played Joker described filming as very difficult due to the oh my god.
Start reading. Come on now. Saying oh my god and reading to yourself is not podcast material.
So part of this was filmed at the Beckton Gas Works. And the environment was toxic for the film crew, and it was contaminated with asbestos and other chemicals.
That sounds like a Kubrick joint, to be honest.
And we also talked about like the boot camp sequences with Ermey yelling at him for 10 hours a day. And apparently they did not rehearse together to have like a more
authentic,
yeah, scenes. And for film continuity, each recruit had their head shaved once a week. And while filming, Ermey had a car accident and broke several ribs, making him unavailable for 4.5 months. Also, there is an Easter egg during Cowboy's death in which one of the buildings resembles an alien monolith in Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, which Kubrick actually said was not on purpose.
That's a stretch.
That being said,
likes and dislikes.
Yep.
All right. I have no notes. Do you want me to start or do you want to start? This is my fucking sheet, dude. I wrote Full Metal Jacket at the top, and that's it. There's no notes. I've seen this movie so many motherfucking times. I know everything. Do you want to start or you want me to start?
I think we're gonna go dislikes first because that's gonna be really short. At least for me.
Yeah, same.
All right.
My dislike list is honestly really, really simple. The biggest detractment I have from it is that I think, first off, with premise, I think this is Kubrick's best effort at a societal piece. I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks, that like always he tries to put something in there that is some societal piece, some bigger issue than just I made a movie that was good and enjoyable, right? And I think that this movie by far does the best job of here it is right in front of you. Also, we're not explicitly saying this is anti-blank, right? Like, you can very much go into this with like your 9 IQ and be like, this is a fun war movie and I enjoyed the first 40 minutes, right? But like all of that is very explicitly anti-war. They're putting in front of you how bad war is for the American people, right? That like I think this is Kubrick's best job at making a cinematic masterpiece that is his very established, take on society. The problem that I have with it, with that premise, is that I think the first 45 minutes are like too comedic to get that point across. I've seen this movie 1,000 fucking times, and 800 of those 1,000 times is 40 minutes, and you go, okay, we can go back to doing whatever else because the fun part's over, right? Like, even as somebody who loves all of this movie, right? Even the end, I think, is so phenomenally well done, right? Like, it's just the drill sergeant says the most hilarious fucking insults you've ever goddamn heard, right off the cuff, completely and totally fucking ad-libbed. And you laugh at it you never really pay attention to the fact that it is such a societal piece, right? I think I don't know how to do it better, right? So my negative goes like, for all intents and purposes without any validation whatsoever, right? Because I don't know how to do it better where you engage people in the movie while also not distracting them from the point you're trying to make.
Right.
But I do think that it's just like, haha, hey, funny comedy. You never get to really learn the objective that Kubrick's trying to get across, despite how well he does that objective.
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent. I'd say my main gripe with this movie is that, okay, I'm gonna seem kind of a little bit of a hypocrite or anything like that, but like, there isn't much of like a typical plot, if that makes sense, with like the movie. It's basically like Joker goes to. There's basically two parts of the movie. Like, it's Joker's time in boot camp, Joker's time in Vietnam, and like, granted, like, my favorite so far, Barry Lyndon, is basically kind of like that, as I like, this is his rise, this is his fall, but there's kind of like an arc, so to speak, while there really isn't much of like an arc between the two segments in this movie, at least with Joker.
I'm gonna disagree with you.
No,
I understand where you're coming from. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it's not there, but what I'm saying is that it's kind of hard to. Honestly, it just kind of seems like, okay, it's like, here's like the drill sergeant thing, Ellen, here's Vietnam War bad. Like, that seems to be kind of like what I get from it, from like.
No, okay.
From like first viewing, it's like.
Okay, so the reasons that I'm going to like understand your perspective is because the first part of the movie is they kind of like unintentionally make Private Pyle the focus, right? Like, it's still Joker's experience, right? So imagine the arc is not necessarily like, okay, now he's seen boot camp and he's got PTSD and then he gets on the plane and drops off and starts his writing career, right? Imagine that arc, instead of focusing on Joker experiencing the arc, it's Joker witnessing Private Pyle experiencing the arc. Like, that's your arc. That's how he gets to Vietnam, right? Like, that's your plot line. The problem is that the story, like, the reason that I'll understand your point while disagreeing is that they don't do a good job in the first 45 minutes of making you recognize that it is Joker's story. It's told about Private Pyle, but it is Joker's experience that is supposed to be your perspective.
And they do link things, because he does run into Cowboy, which, by the way, I'm not sure how the military basically works with like divisions and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure Snowball's was assigned for the same division, and
they were all just told 300 infantry. It didn't assign them to divisions.
Oh, okay. So 300 infantry is not division. It's just
my interpretation was always like level of what your job is, not necessarily where they were assigned.
Okay. Because I was about to say, it's like, did like Snowball like get like sent back, or did he like die?
If I know anything about Kubrick, he took the first bullet in Vietnam. Racist fuck. Anyway. But
that being said, like, the only thing that I kind of really like gather, and I understand what you're saying, Ted, and like it definitely makes sense, but like going off the cuff, because unfortunately, like, I was so distracted about the first point of the movie, and then was just like, with like the rest of the movie, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this, and then it's the sniper scene, and that's when it really like hits your gut. And then thinking back, I'm like, shit, I literally like stopped paying attention like after Gomer Pyle, commits suicide, and then it's to the end where things get really, 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 really dark in the movie. That it seems that when you kind of felt like you missed a whole chunk of the middle from just kind of like not paying attention to certain things. And to me, it's like the only thing I can really think of is that like throughout everything, like at least Joker still has his humanity at the end.
I would, I guess there's okay. So we're gonna jump into likes. I hope you have no bigger other points for dislikes. We can circle back.
I do have one other dislike.
Right.
A couple of characters that they set up that they kind of like drop, or points that they drop, because apparently Joker's supposed to like be taking care of like was it Rafterman? Or
Rafterman, yeah.
Rafterman. And then it's like, okay, so this is going to turn into something, and then it doesn't really turn into anything except for like he saves his life. But like it's not really that much of like it's kind of like an afterthought that he
I'm so frustrated. Okay, go ahead.
What?
Right.
No, I figured that there would be a scene where it'd be like a hit where he would be like a hindrance or something like that, where he has to choose on whether, to go save his ass or not, because it's his responsibility.
No. So the entire point, I'm again using both of your last 2 points to spiral this into likes, because
okay.
I think this is really important for this movie. It's so easy to watch this film on a really surface level. If you're not looking for the in-depth topics and the way that the narration happens towards the bigger points, they're so easy to miss, right? But the entire purpose is about Joker's humanity, right? In the middle section of the movie, he's talking to that officer about the duality of man, where born to kill is written on his helmet, but he wears the peace sign on his chest, right? And and that's what the entire end of the movie is about, right? Is the duality of man. You call it his humanity, right? Where he's putting someone out of his misery, and it's so easy to look at that at a surface level, but also it's giving up on the idea that like he's not here to commit violence. He can't commit to a war face because he doesn't want to look angry. He goes through the entire basic training, watches a dude paint the fucking walls with his brain behind him, and he goes into journalism, right? He's supposed to be writing stories about the good guys winning the war. He's like, yeah, I never saw a dead body, because he just like the violence just doesn't exist to him. And the end of the movie is the guys the guys that you never see, the rest of the squad, celebrating him for being like, man, that's cold, because he put a child out of her misery, dude. He had to shoot a child because that's what he decided was human. He was conditioned into being a soldier and being able to just shoot things that oppose us, putting it out of its misery instead of finding it medical attention, right? Like, no,
said that. They did say in the dialogue that she was screwed. Anyway,
I recognize that, but they didn't go back for the other soldier. There was a solid 45 seconds of you're looking in his eyes, watching him be fucking angry. They're not going back out and to save the fucking what's his name, the Texas whatever the fuck. I can't think of his goddamn name.
Cowboy died.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but he already died.
They didn't go back and pay attention to Cowboy. They didn't pay attention to the two that were stuck out in the field. Part of that was racism, because Kubrick's a piece of shit. There's a reason they were fighting Vietnamese. Anyway, I'm going to leave Kubrick the fuck out of this, because I'm going to get to his stupid ass later. But no, the entire purpose is that, like, they, instead of focusing on the war, on the task at hand, on saving the people who had a chance to live that were on their side, there was 45 seconds of let the whole group stare at the guy to decide if he's human or if he's a soldier. And then he shoots him and they say, that's cold, we respect you. No, the entire movie is about him giving up on humanity because of all of the things that he saw. That's the arc, man. Like, it's so not surface level. I love the way that Kubrick did this movie. my big positive here, right? I understand your negatives there, but like they transition so well into the idea that like if you watch this movie to learn something, if you watch this movie to feel or to get a big picture rather than just the entertainment value of moving pictures on screen in front of me, you really see the way that he develops to no longer be human, to just be a machine as a part of the military industrial complex. It's so brilliantly written that it's easy to miss. You have to go looking for it. I think it's fantastic. This is by far Kubrick's most like insightful, like quality, thoughtful work by a million miles. A million miles. Okay, I can be done on my rant. All right, go ahead.
All right. Now, since we're into likes, I do like the fact that if you are paying attention, you can actually see like a lot of different themes that are going on through this movie, especially with like the anti-war sentiment, because like how the movie starts out is, you know, kind of comedic and, you know, funny, almost kind of like a tad bit like enthusiastic, optimistic, nothing like a whole bunch of negative. And then the movie just gets darker and darker as it goes. And it's almost kind of like with like it's gone for so long, like the Vietnam War, or even like, you know, with Iraq and Afghanistan. It's always at the beginning when a war starts, everybody's gung-ho. It's like, yeah, it's like, we're going to go out there and kick some ass. And then the horrors of war happen. And then the more that a war drags on and drags on and drags on, the worse and bloodier it gets, the more tired and just evil that everybody just kind of gets. And it just keeps on getting worse and 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 stacks, and it just does not get any better.
I'd absolutely
until
agree.
It finally ends.
Absolutely.
And I really like how like, and it's always like there's always like one part like with the Vietnam War itself. It's with the Tet Offense. Like the Tet Offense is when you know. What?
Say it to my face. I'm just being a shit. Please move on.
Yeah. The Tet Offense, which is shown in this movie, where things, you know, where the tide changes in the war, where, you know, well, this is actually going to last a lot longer than we thought it was going to, and the North Vietnamese are actually putting up a, you know, big fight. And in this movie, it's when Private Pyle, you know, commits suicide, where, you know, that's the catalyst of everything, you know, going to hell right afterwards, especially since for the sheer fact that, you know, like, it seems that even though you see the cracks and that Pyle is all obviously, you know, like snapped, you see it a little bit beforehand, but, you know, you just kind of figure he might snap in war as opposed to like as soon as he does. But it's optimistic that he, you know, made it to infantry and actually graduated despite his shortcomings, but unfortunately, you know, it was still too much for him.
Yeah. I do want to agree with you before we go too far in that you mentioned that the movie gets darker and darker as it goes on, much like war. And I think the epitome of that is after the final scene where, you know, Joker essentially euthanizes the child.
Yeah.
They're singing the fucking Mickey Mouse theme song while walking through a darkened napalm battle scene, right? Like the only light that you can see is from fire on the ground. Everything else is dark. They're not even identifiable soldiers. It's so dark, right? But they're singing about capitalism because it's the war machine, right? Like I no, you're absolutely spot on, dude. It's brilliant.
Also, I think now I know that Ted here is going to probably like rant on Kubrick, you know, being a racist and stuff, but For what of a lot of stuff that I've read upon Vietnam, a lot of the propaganda that was used was pretty much like not just anti-communism, but like blatant freaking racism to dehumanize the Vietnamese, for the sheer fact that unlike many wars, Vietnam, a lot of the case was based on body count as opposed to like strategic
Yeah, it's the only way Americans convince themselves
positions.
they won that war.
And and in order to have a war that's just solely based on body count, you unfortunately have to dehumanize the enemy, which is something that the United States has, or in any country has done a lot with war propaganda, is dehumanize the enemy. But a lot of what was used during the Vietnam War was blatant and like gross racism. Also during the time when this war was fought, it was during like the civil rights, era. Right. So that was definitely race was definitely a huge issue at the time.
I recognize that race was an issue for the war that was. My issue with Kubrick in this sense is that this movie came out 20 years after the fucking war! We're no longer dealing with racism. There's no longer a need to 20 years after the fact use the N-word the first time that you spot eyes on somebody who isn't fucking a straight white male, okay? There's no need for all of the racist terms they use. Even if they're, like, if you were making a movie for the time, right? So be it if you end up using words that are very much racist against the Vietnamese people, okay? I think most of those are replaceable when they say things like the VC, right? Which, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, but is not an offensive term. It was referring to their military forces in Vietnam.
Yes.
Right?
That's not, the Viet Cong.
So I don't understand why they can use terms like that. They can avoid racism intentionally 20 years after the war ended. When one of the drill sergeant's first line is, "I'm not racist, but," and then he immediately drops 4 slurs for things that don't even get referenced in this movie. And to your point, I recognize that race had a huge big deal in this war, right? I get it, both from within just American barracks by themselves because of the civil rights movement, right? And even it doesn't even bother me that bad when the characters interact with each other that way. However, it happens on multiple occasions that, black people are just cannon fodder within this movie. Kubrick's just like, hey, you're an expendable character because you're not white. You barely get a name, okay? And then the idea that, like, they're like, the drill sergeant says, "I'm not racist. Here's every offensive term I can think of." The first character he addresses is a black man, and he apologizes to him that every meal won't be fried chicken and watermelon. After saying, "I'm not racist, but," okay, like, there are so many slurs in this movie. There's so many detractions. There's just an unhealthy, unnecessary amount of racism. If this movie came out in the
second half of the movie,
if this came out in like 1971, okay, where we're just post-war and you're trying to make a piece for the times, or the tensions are still high or whatever, I could almost forgive it while saying that you're a shitty person. This one is Kubrick being intentionally fucking shitty. Kubrick needs a fucking therapist, and then also just like the basic education that there exists more than straight white men.
I can't wait till we get to Tarantino.
God damn, dude.
But crap, what was the point I was making with that before? And I wasn't saying that Kubrick wasn't racist.
I don't know. You said I was going to go off on a rant, and then I did.
Oh yeah, because the Kubrick thing. I was saying that, to me, like, for what I've kind of known for the Vietnam War, with like the research that was done in this movie, it seems fairly realistic. Of course, then again, almost every movie kind of like that is about Vietnam tends to with the exception of like I think We Were Soldiers, like falls into like the unfortunate category of like blatant frickin' racism, especially towards the Vietnamese.
Look, Platoon didn't intentionally kill off black people first, right?
No.
It didn't use the N-word unnecessarily and very intentionally, right? That like
no, but they used the slurs.
Sure. Look, I'm saying that there are ways to like you can capture the sign of the times, still have your racism because you feel like it, without being intentionally. I just like being racist, right? Like there's ways around it, right? I'm not even defending Platoon, right? I'm saying that Platoon was less egregious and it featured Charlie Sheen. You can be not intentional with it. Like it felt like Kubrick was putting effort into how racist can I get and still produce a movie. Fucker.
Yeah, and I wonder what the hell the thought process was. If it was like war itself was like the war. I mean, if it was a commentary on like the war itself being racist itself, or if like Kubrick's just a fuckhead. Of course, then again,
he produced Lolita. You have your answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kubrick's a piece of shit.
There we
I didn't necessarily put that together before now, but like watching all of his movies back to back, I was like, oh, Kubrick's a bad guy. I'm kind of regretting that we did Kubrick and we still have a movie to go.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that despite the subject matter, that's probably going to be the least problematic out of all movies that we've watched. No,
it's going to be out there.
More when I think about it, I think A Clockwork Orange so far is the least problem. That's bad. That's terrible, ain't it?
It's I mean, it's on a short list. Like, I don't know what goes number one as least problematic, but Clockwork Orange is close to the top. Like, it's fucked, man. It's fucked.
Clockwork Orange, Spartacus, which has nothing in it.
I do want to say though, as far as likes go, because I feel like I've just kind of shit on Kubrick in this movie. To be honest, I thought this movie was brilliantly done. I thought. I do too. I think that all of the choices that got made in the filming process were the right choices. To let R. Lee Ermey go off the cuff, the correct choice, because everything felt flawless, right? To allow him to ad-lib and take over that drill sergeant role. Yeah, cinematography was great. I thought camera angles were good. Lighting was pretty good for the most part. I mean, there's some like late 80s age that comes with it, but no real detractions, right? I thought sound was pretty crisp and clear. I thought, like, as far as my knowledge as just a plain old civilian goes, like, I thought their dive into military life was beyond just what you would normally see in a movie. I think the sell into the points that Kubrick was trying to make were all brilliantly sold. I mean, there's a moment in time where the privates are all sitting on the bleachers and R. Lee Ermey is like genuinely praising like two different murderers because they used to be Marines, right? Like they're really buying into this. You can be the best soldier ever. I don't care if you're a good person, be a good soldier. And I mean, that's the plot of the whole movie. Like they do just so many subtle things to sell it. The other thing that I'll say is this, more than any other Kubrick movie, not even close, like bar none, this movie wastes no time. It's still...
Thank fucking God.
It's still a long movie. There are still pieces of it that don't feel action-packed and fulfilling, right? Don't get me wrong. But every line belongs in this movie. There's nothing in this movie that you're like, oh, you could cut that. Every single line is important. There's a reason for everything that's happening.
There was no intermission needed.
Yeah, you know exactly when the first part ends and you can go refill your popcorn. It's written on the wall in blood behind Private Pile. It says the end, like written in his blood. But I'm just like, for real though, there's no wasted points in this movie. Every line continues to prove a point, right? There's purpose for everything that happens, even in the slower parts that feel less important. They're all important. There's a reason. There's methodology behind every single syllable. And I really respect that because Kubrick has taken 11 fucking movies to figure out that he shouldn't just add filler to make a 4-hour movie. Fucking Kubrick.
Yeah.
Fucking Kubrick. All right, I think it's time to get into the rankings before I yell at this anymore.
Yeah.
All right, hit me, Stahlman. What you got?
Christ. I think I'm putting this at number 3 between Clockwork Orange and The Shining. Mainly because like the pacing, for the love of God, is great. I also love the subtext that's in this movie, because this movie, like, as a societal piece, is brilliant. That you can easily pull out so many different themes that are commentary on society that are in this movie. Not even just war's just basically like the surface of it. There's other like psychological stuff within this that also does pertain with war. Also lighting, camera. It's also a movie that I think is that, I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but it's definitely, I'd say, Kubrick's most
super
accessible.
Watchable. Super watchable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's just for how like good the movie is in general. Also, the effect that this movie's had on pop culture. There's, so many people that have quoted like the beginning part. Also, even that the line, there's a line of like a Vietnamese like hooker in this movie that was actually sampled in for like I think it was like a 2 Live Crew song.
And then an Offspring song, yeah.
Yeah. And like, that doesn't happen without like a movie that's actually so well done that it makes a huge impact. And I can always watch this movie without just I never get tired of it,
Yeah.
Like it's not a movie like that would be like my first choice to watch like a Kubrick movie, but it's something that if it's on, I am definitely not going to complain, and I'm going to watch it the whole way through.
I was trying my best to not make this first, but for so many of the reasons that you mentioned, I think it's first. First and foremost, I think this is
Damn it! I was hoping for the meme of like everybody loves a heist.
Yeah, I know. No, genuinely though, I think this is Kubrick's coup de grace, right? I think this is everything Kubrick has tried to do through every single one of his movies, right? He tried to make the societal piece. He tried to make like watchable movies. He tried to make longer movies that matter both culturally, like with societal input. Like I think this is everything Kubrick has idealized,
yeah,
right?
I do say that this is probably Kubrick's prestige. That makes sense.
When we watched Christopher Nolan, right? Like we found his stride very early on. When we went through the whole series, and we found so much Christopher Nolan in his second movie, right? He found his stride in Memento. There were pieces and elements that got better, but it was already a Christopher Nolan film by his second one. And I think that we've seen so many elements that are Kubrick, right? But we've never seen all of them come together all at the same time, quite like it does in Full Metal Jacket. Like this is everything that he's been working towards, all of the pieces that you can say, oh, that's so much like Stanley Kubrick. Everything comes together here.
And to be honest, if I hadn't seen this movie as many times as I did, I would probably like objectively might have it at number 1, but like I just happen to like Barry Lyndon and A Clockwork Orange more.
And that's respectable. Honestly, I just like you said, this movie does the societal piece as well. it creates the least fucking dead time that's worthless, right? So it's the most watchable movie by a lot. I think it's approachable by the most audiences. It provides comic relief as well as serious topics. Like there's drama, there's society, there's comedy. Like the whole thing's here. I don't know that you could find a more Kubrick-like film than this one. I think this just hits all the notes.
The sad thing about that, because when we get into like his last film, Eyes Wide Shut, there's like a huge gap in between there, and that's because like he was trying to put together adapt Isaac Asimov's AI, artificial intelligence, which ends up getting directed by Steven Spielberg after Kubrick sold the rights to his script to Spielberg. That it just makes me kind of wish, like, it's like, wow, he could have definitely gotten. I would have loved to see more of like this type of Kubrick, because I know the next one we ain't getting that.
Yeah.
I know we ain't getting that. Even though that movie took a while for him to actually, be able to turn into a movie, but like
yeah.
It's just unfortunate that this is the one where he figures everything out 100% as opposed to like bits and pieces.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll get into that next week, but I think it's time to wrap this one up.
Yep.
As always, thank you guys for watching. We have our last Stanley Kubrick movie next week. Following that, YouTube is going to be catching quite a large break between the Kubrick series and our next series. Those are all going to come out in October. However, you can continue to watch movies with us in the Discord on Tuesday. The Discord link is posted below, so you can check that out if you're catching this on,
that
whatever.
Being said, we will have a review of Oppenheimer in between then, because Oppenheimer does come out
sometime in July.
Sometime in July. So
yeah, without looking at it, sometime in July. We'll get it posted once we've all watched it. It's harder in theaters, but sometime between when you see this and October 1st, we will have an Oppenheimer review posted. But yeah, expect a long break from this. If you're enjoying the content, you can go catch up on old episodes. You can just patiently wait till October. You can fucking watch the movies with us in the Discord. Again, check the link. It's important. You can come hang out with us every single Tuesday in the Discord. At some point, we're probably also going to be adding a different day so that we can fit in all of the movies we need to watch for October, because we got so much shit planned. You have no fucking idea.
Ooh, boy. Yeah.
Oh, I know. We're going to be watching so many goddamn movies. But if you're in the Discord and you sign up for the community events role, you'll be able to see all of it, and it'll come to you like a nice little alert ding on your cell phone. It's great. Technology's awesome. Anyway, we want to thank you for watching. You can check us both out on Twitch. Stahlman at Private Pile. Just kidding. It's Traductus. Myself at Ted Green Eagles. I'm changing my name.
Snowball.
Yeah, changing my name really quickly to Private Snowball. PVT Snowball. Yeah, no underscores. Thank you guys for watching this one, and we'll catch you here next week.
See ya.